Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. If you can hear a humming in the background, I have a portable heater here in the pod cave because it is so cold down here right now. I didn't think I could sit through the recording without an added heat source.
Yeah, I sympathize. I'm also in the basement, and while I'm keeping relatively warm, I don't think I've worn just a t-shirt at home in a couple of days. So it's definitely chilly out. It's around minus 25 or thereabouts in Calgary at the moment. We had issues with one of our vehicles and had to do the jump start thing. So yeah, we're making our way through this cold snap, Jason. But in the meantime, I'm excited to chat with you tonight.
Yeah, who'd have thought in the third week of February, week of Family Day, that we would have this many things to talk about? It's crazy when you think about it. A full slate of topics for this week.
Yeah, no games still. We're still in preseason for pretty much all of the teams that we cover, but lots of player movement, signings, departures, coaching moves, and we managed to get an interview this week. So a full agenda for this week's episode, definitely.
So yeah, we'll talk about all those, all the things you mentioned and more. And big news out of Calgary Wild camp. Why don't we start off with the Calgary Wild?
Hi, this is Carly Johnson, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, Jason, we knew that we would have to lead tonight with the news that Mya Jones is coming home. The Calgarian, who most recently has been with AFC Toronto, although she never did play for that team due to a season-long injury. She has signed with the Calgary Wild.
When I posted about it on our social media, I made a comment that from the perspective of Calgary and women's soccer, arguably the biggest player ever, right? You know, Kaylee Hunter may have something to say about that eventually here, and she's making quite a name for herself. But really, Mya Jones is the most decorated women's soccer player that Calgary has produced in quite a few years. Probably you'd have to go back to someone like Christine Latham, which is like 20 plus years ago, to find anyone that would be sort of in the same category.
Yeah, and she's still young. Hey, like is Mya Jones 24, 25? Like she's still relatively early on into her career. She's only played a couple of pro seasons. But no, you're right in the sense that, her credentials, she had a decorated NCAA career with the University of Memphis, and then she was drafted by the San Diego Wave in the NWSL, which is one of the top leagues in the world. Played alongside Alex Morgan and, has played youth games for Canada. But yeah, this is, I think, the biggest signing that the Wild has made. It's the kind of signing I think we would have hoped to see last year, Jason. But good to have her back. And hopefully she's, close to fitness, because as we've talked about a lot, she has struggled with injury in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a tough go for her. Started off with really, I think the coach who had championed her cause in San Diego was no longer with the team. So it didn't seem like there was going to be much chance for her to play. And they loaned her out to AFC Toronto. And then she's had this injury. It's to her foot, right? Do I have that right? Or is it foot or leg? I think it's foot.
I thought it was it's either ankle or knee, was my understanding.
Okay. Oh, well, at someplace in the lower part of the body. And it turned into being much more significant than I think anyone expected it to be. And we mentioned last year that she put an Instagram post which sort of detailed everything. So yeah, I don't know where she's at for fitness right now, but it still seems like a no-brainer to bring her into the squad. Even if you said, well, she's not going to really be at full fitness and not at the beginning of the year, I think it's definitely worth, going for it and bringing her on the team, because she has the potential to bring so much to this club and a lot of what they need, frankly, like with her offensive skill set.
The games that I've seen Mya Jones play, she's definitely an attacking threat, right? Like she can score all kinds of goals. She scored a lot of goals for the Memphis Tigers. She scored a couple for San Diego in her time there. Huge statement signing for the Calgary Wild, I think, but hopefully this isn't a situation like with last year, Farkhunda Mutaj, where she didn't play a single game all year. You have to assume that if she is able to get back to full fitness and her previous form, she's going to be a starter, pretty much guaranteed.
For sure. And in last week's podcast, we said that by the time most people would be listening to it on Friday, the Wild would have signed another player. And they did. They signed Allie Hess, which I also view as being a pretty significant signing overall.
Yeah, Allie Hess played last year with Montreal Roses. So she's a new signing that comes with league experience in the NSL. She made 23 appearances for Montreal, scored 2 goals, got 2 assists, and had 16 shots and played a pretty key role in that club's season, Jason. And before coming to Canada, Hess is originally from Kansas City, Missouri. She played in the Frauen-Bundesliga in Germany for a club called MSV Duisburg and helped that club maintain its top division status. And she played 3 years in the Bundesliga overall, made 53 appearances.
A veteran player, 29 years old, played NCAA football at Missouri. She's a legit regular starter for the team that can play a few different positions. I don't think there's any doubt that she's going to improve the quality in that midfield, and she can do a whole bunch of things well. So she will definitely make a difference on this club. We know Mya Jones could potentially make a big difference depending on how quickly she can get fitness, but Allie Hess should make this team better from day one.
In addition to a couple of player signings, the Calgary Wild also announced a new goalkeeping coach who is not a stranger to Calgary by any means.
This is the first time we've seen a transfer over essentially from Cavalry FC to the Calgary Wild in regards to technical staff. Dave Odorico has been named as the Wild goalkeeping coach and assistant coach, and he held a similar position last year with Cavalry.
Yeah, he was their head of goalkeeping, but now he joins, I guess he makes the crosstown move. He holds UEFA A license, previously worked in Quebec with a League One Quebec team named FC Laval. And he was also a goalkeeping coach within CF Montreal's Academy's women's program. But he's originally from Calgary, I believe, played for the likes of Foothills, Villains, Mackenzie United, also competed professionally. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about him, but interesting to see that for the first time we've seen that movement between the two professional clubs in the city.
Mm-hmm. Last thing we'll talk about with the Wild is that we're going to be seeing the international window open up next week. It opens up on February 24th. I guess no big surprise, but 3 Wild players are going to be making very long plane flights to go play for their countries here next week.
Players we've seen make this kind of trip before. Michaela Moore has been called up by New Zealand to play World Cup qualifiers in the Solomon Islands against the Solomon Islands, as well as Samoa and American Samoa. Jackie Sawicki has been called up by the Philippines for their games against Australia, South Korea, and Iran in the Asian Cup. And then Collie Johnson gets called up again by the Matildas. She's going to go play for Australia in that same Asian Cup group. So she might be playing against her Wild teammate in a couple of days.
Seems likely. And not a Wild player, but Kaylee Hunter, Calgarian, she was called up for the Canadian senior women's team, and she's going to play in the She Believes Cup.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting for Kaylee. That's going to be some really good competition for Canada. They're in a group with Colombia, Argentina, and the U.S., and their tournament kicks off March 1st, and the group stage wraps up March 7th.
I'm James McGlinchey. This is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Okay, let's talk about Cavalry FC, and no new signings for the Cavs this week, but still some player movement to talk about. We found out about the fate of some former players and national team duty and a new trialist. So let's talk about that. I guess maybe a good place to start would be Diego Gutierrez. He has found a landing spot very far from Canada.
Yeah, he has made the move to Cambodia to sign with that country's biggest club, Phnom Penh Crown FC, who are based in the capital city of Cambodia. Phnom Penh. Jason, I actually watched some of their more recent game highlights because I was kind of curious about the level of soccer that Diego Gutierrez was going to be playing. And yeah, he's joining a big club, right? Like Phnom Penh Crown is the defending champion in Cambodia's top flight. They're the most successful Cambodian team. I believe they've won 8 league titles over the years. That means that they do qualify for the likes of the Asian Champions League, or whatever the equivalent is. And he actually has a familiar teammate to CPL fans. He is joining the same club as his former Daler FC teammate, Moses Dyer.
Yeah, I wonder if that's maybe part of the connection that he ended up over there. I will tell you one thing about the Cambodian League. I remember former Cavalry forward Marcus Haber spent a few years in Cambodia, and I heard an interview with him, and he basically said that it was a very good life. The money was really good. He was a dominant player, and the lifestyle was great. Marcus Haber isn't playing anymore in Cambodia. He was in Thailand, and I think he's now moved over to the Philippines. But anyway, bottom line here is that it may not be the most known league in the world, but there's definitely some cash there, and there is. I think there's probably a surprising amount of professionalism and high quality there. So good for Diego Gutierrez. That's I think probably a pretty nice move for him.
Other cavalry-related news we got this week. We heard that James McGlinchey has been called up to Canada's U20 men's team for their upcoming 2026 CONCACAF U20 qualifiers in Nicaragua. He'll be heading to Central America for 4 games as the Canadians look to qualify for this year's CONCACAF championship.
Group of 5 teams, and I think only the group winner makes it to the championship, but some of these teams you'd like to think would be a relatively easy competition. U.S. Virgin Islands, Martinique, Aruba, Nicaragua at home, I guess, might be the one of the more challenging ones, but certainly a good experience for James McGlinchey, and we'll pay attention to see how it goes there for him.
Yeah, I believe this is his first national team call-up, at least at the U20 level, and championship will determine CONCACAF's entrance for the 2027 FIFA U20 World Cup, which is happening in Azerbaijan. And I didn't realize this, but actually the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles.
As we mentioned, no players signed new contracts this week for Cavalry, but they also announced their goalkeeping coach for the 2026 season, and it's Stuart Kerr.
Yeah, obviously they needed to replace Dave Odorico, and they announced Stuart Kerr this week. Quite the resume, Jason. He's 51. He brings extensive experience with professional clubs around primarily MLS, but he has a professional background as a player, made 75 appearances with Celtic FC, and has coached in Scotland as well for the likes of Airdrie United, as well as Motherwell. He's
got quite a long resume and seems like a good addition based on what we have here in the press release. That's a pretty good resume.
Absolutely. The MLS clubs that he's been involved with since 2011 include Toronto FC, with whom he was with until 2014, Orlando City. He joined there in 2015 and was appointed as the club's director of goalkeeping. He was there in Florida for 2 years before he joined Vancouver Whitecaps as their head of goalkeeping and first team goalkeeper coach. And he was with Vancouver until 2019, at which point he joined Minnesota United.
One final bit about Cavalry FC. They announced last week that they found a trialist at their open trials that I was at a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, with a cool backstory. This is Vladislav Satsevich, Ukrainian defender. He spent 2025 with the Nate Ooks in the ACAC and played for St. Albert Impact in League One Alberta. Before coming to Canada, he played with a club in the Ukraine named FC Alexandria with their youth program. And it looks like the club is pretty excited by this guy.
As I often do, I did a bit of a deep dive on his background. Last fall with Nate, he was all ACAC, North Conference, I guess it is, for being a defender. His natural position is right back. So, I think there could be a lot of people potentially competing for those right back minutes in camp. This club that he was with, FC Alexandria, it is in, for lack of better words, in the middle of the war zone. I could find stats for him up until the end of 2021. And at the early part of 2022, that's when the invasion happened. And that team is still active. It's still playing, but he is no longer with the team at that point. So I think it's probably reasonable to assume that due to the war, his family came to Canada and well, they're here now. So I think he's about 21, 22 years old. So interesting. I'm kind of curious to see how it's all going to play out.
Yeah, I don't believe Cavalry has had a player from Ukraine before in their club history. It'd be really cool to see if he did crack the first team. That would be a great story.
Well, right now, the one advantage that Cavalry has is they do have lots of import spots available. So if he qualifies as an import, which I expect he would, they could manage that, right? They still have, I think, 3 or 4 roster spots left and several import spots left. So yeah, it is plausible that the numbers and the roster makeup rules are definitely not a detriment for him.
I am Daler Tokhirov, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So now we're going to get to our interview for this episode. Our interview this week is with Daler Tokhirov. And interesting story, he joins really a flood of Calgarians that are making their way down under to Australia and New Zealand to continue their careers.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting phenomenon that has emerged in the last couple of years in particular. Daler, a few years ago, or less than 2 years ago, but he went to Australia to play in the Perth State League. And then after some time with a club there, went to the capital, Canberra, to play in that state league. So we've seen quite a few Calgarians make similar moves, right? If you think about Noah Herdlicka, Charles Nana, Willie Akio, Junior Adjekam. So it's become a pretty interesting pipeline, Jason, that you and I have noticed. And it was great to talk to Daler about what it's like to make that move and to move halfway across the world to try and pursue your soccer dreams.
So I think now's a good time to run that interview with Daler, and he can talk about his journey as a footballer and about what he's done so far, and looking forward to his next career stop here in New Zealand.
I'd like to welcome Daler Tokhirov to the podcast. Daler is currently playing in New Zealand with a club called Petone FC, but he's originally from Calgary. He also played for 2 different U Sports programs. Daler, thanks for coming on our podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So we definitely want to ask you about your career and how you ended up playing in New Zealand and I believe Australia before that. But we always like to start by asking our guests to kind of give a rundown of ties to Calgary, which clubs they played with growing up, and how it came to be that you ended up going so far away to pursue your career. So yeah, when you were growing up in Calgary, can you tell us which clubs you played for and where you went after that?
When I started off in Calgary, and I kind of started playing at U12 because that's when I moved to Calgary from my original country, Uzbekistan. So I played for Northside Soccer from U12 to like U14. So I was playing at Northside for about 2 years. And then from there, I went over to Chinook Soccer Club. And basically, I played there all the way until U19 and then all the way to men's league. And then from there, I joined the Wild for like 1 season, and they had like a university prep program. And then from there on, I kind of went on to play for Thompson Rivers University for 2 seasons. And then from TRU, I went on to USask, and then I also played there for 2 seasons as well before trying to basically go abroad to play soccer.
A bit more specifically about yourself and your playing style, like what is your preferred position on the pitch? Like what kind of could you just give our listeners a bit of an idea of the type of player you are?
Yeah, so basically I'm a player that likes to like dribble a lot and tries to make those like fancy passes or like through balls. So I consider myself a winger as my main position. But when I was over in Australia, I was playing more as a left winger, and then for my second club, I was playing more as a number 10. So I could kind of play both roles where I could kind of use my 1v1 ability on the wing and then kind of use more of my creativity in the 10 position.
As mentioned, you've played in Australia. Can you talk about how it came to be that you ended up going down there? And it seems to be a pathway that a lot more Calgarians are choosing these days. Like we've got Elijah Adekugbe just went, Noah Herdlicka, Adam Huskich, Charles Nana. William Accio, Junior Agiacum. I'm sure you know some or all of those guys. What made you want to go so far away?
Yeah, basically like looking at those names, a couple of my former teammates from Thompson Rivers ended up going to Australia. So I've always wanted to try and play at the highest level possible. And then when I saw my teammates like Junior Ajakum and like Jackson Gardner, they both went over to Australia and they were telling me really good things about it. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna try and like go somewhere where I can just continue playing football, where after university you can't really play anymore. So I was like, I just want to take my game to the next level. So I decided to just make a CV that's like really professional and then make a highlight tape. And then I just decided to literally like email the whole country from like the MPL level to the state league. And then like luckily just one team was really interested. And then yeah, basically we made it happen. And thanks to the coach, he took a chance on me. And then it basically worked out for me. And then I moved to Australia, yeah, last year basically.
You started with the club in Sydney or the club in Perth? I know you played for in both cities.
Yeah. I played in Perth first. So I played for a team called Kingsley Soccer Club in the State League One over there. And then for my second club, I played for Ugali Soccer Club, and that was in the Canberra MPL.
Okay, so I somehow I thought it was Sydney, but yeah, Canberra. Okay.
I was playing for a club in Perth. I know that city is so isolated from the rest of the country, and it's far away from pretty much every other city in Australia. What was it like to move to a city that isolated?
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought as well when I first went there. I was like, this is the most isolated like city in the world, and everyone's like saying that. But I kind of found like similarities to Calgary. It's a really calm city. It's a big city like Calgary, but it's really like calm. Everyone is pretty much nice. Everyone does their own thing, and the soccer community there is like pretty massive there as well. Like there's a lot of clubs with like a lot of culture, a lot of history, and there's a lot of like ethnic clubs, especially a lot of Italian teams, Serbian teams, Macedonian teams, stuff like that. So I thought the soccer culture was really big there, and I think it was a easier transition as well because I met a lot of like really nice people as well there and a lot of like-minded people. Yeah, I think Perth was a great city.
You're on your way next week to New Zealand and this new club, Petone FC. You want to talk a bit about how you ended up joining this club and a little bit about that process and a little bit about what you know about New Zealand football?
Basically, after my Australia stint, I still want to end up playing at the highest level possible. And I heard that New Zealand, the first year, had a thing where it's called that transfer market, where you get a value for how much you're worth, basically. But the MPL in Australia only has that for the first division in Sydney and Melbourne, but it's really hard to get it. But in New Zealand, it's easier. I was basically thinking of going over there just for the transfer market and obviously for the experience. And same thing, one of my teammates was playing there last season, Jackson Gardner. He's a goalkeeper, and I think he's playing for Tahiti United now in the OFC Pro League. But he was basically telling me he had a few connections over there, and he got me in touch with this mutual kind of friend that we have now, and he also plays in New Zealand as a center back, and he basically is at Petone FC now. And I reached out to him, and he kind of like helped me get a contact from Petone FC's coach. And then I reached out to him, and then I sent him my CV and my highlights and everything, and he seemed to like it. And he was like, "Oh yeah, like we'd basically love to have you." It was a few months of it behind the scenes, like working process, but it ended up like working out. So that's kind of how I got the connection.
Are you expecting the new league or the new team you'll be playing with to be like a step up from what you've been doing in Australia thus far?
From what I know, I believe so, just because the team is, I think, more of a proper setup. Like they have a lot of exposure on their social media platforms. So I think that could help me get somewhere to potentially like a better team or a better league. So that's kind of my hope. So in Australia, they only train 2 to 3 times a week. But then in New Zealand, in the first year, they kind of train 3 to 4 times a week. So I think that would be better for my developmental side of the game. So yeah, I definitely expect it to be a little bit higher.
Being a Canadian, I think, you've got Uzbekistan, like you've got Uzbeki passport as well, but are you considered an import there, or is there a limit to how many imports they can have on a team? Like, how does some of this stuff work? Like, even with like work visas, like what's that all look like? How complicated is that, all that stuff?
Yeah, so basically for Australia, you can have 3 imports, but you can have a fourth one if you have like an Asian passport or an Australian one. But in New Zealand, you can actually have 5 of them, but 4 of them can be in the starting lineup. So so only 4 of them can be in the starting lineup, and then the fifth one has to be like on the bench. But you can have 5 international spots. I'm considered an import for them.
Daler, whenever we chat with people who are playing so far away from home, whether it's in Australia or Europe or wherever, we always like to ask them about some of the off-field challenges that they've gone through. And so asking you, I mean, have there been any like culture shock? Has there been any of that, or any kind of challenges that you've had to overcome by moving so far from home to pursue your dreams?
Yeah, I think definitely my first few months in Australia was kind of challenging, especially being so far from home, like you mentioned, especially because I couldn't work for my first 2 to 3 months. So I had a lot of kind of time to myself because I was still waiting for my working holiday visa. Because for some people, it comes in really fast. For some people, it takes a bit of time. So I kind of had to go on a visitor's visa before I could actually get my working holiday. So for the first 2, 3 months, it was kind of like a lot of waiting around, a lot of trying to find like cash jobs just because you couldn't work on a visitor's visa. It was a tough few months, I would say. But then after I got it, I think it kind of like all kind of paid off where I was even like more confident on the pitch. I was scoring more goals. And I think that factor kind of translates into the game where if you're off the pitch kind of life isn't really working out, I think it definitely matters on the pitch in terms of confidence and everything else. That was a good like learning curve for me personally, just kind of trying to find useful things that I can do in my free time. And like I'm also doing online school as well. I have a year left of school, so I was trying to prioritize my school more, I guess, and just trying to finish up a lot of classes, as much classes that I can. But yeah, I would say the first couple months was challenging, but it ended up paying off.
Looking ahead right now, got your season in New Zealand ahead of you, but like, what are your goals and aspirations, for your soccer career in general? Like, you've made the effort to move halfway around the world to pursue it. So, where do you, what are your goals?
My kind of goal in New Zealand is to have a really successful season, and as an attacker, that kind of means like goals, assists. So I kind of definitely want to be one of the top players in the Central League. So score goals, get assists, and then potentially get a move somewhere else. This season, I was really looking at getting an agent because I kind of found it's a bit hard not having an agent and trying to go places. My goal literally after the season was try to find an agent, try to make connections just so I can find a legitimate one because it is really hard to find a proper agent where you just throw money at them and then they don't get you anything. So I had to do a lot of research about it, and I ended up getting an agent. And I'm hoping after a successful season in New Zealand that he can find me something good. I think after the season, I potentially want to play somewhere where it's full day, like a professional setup, kind of like the Cavalry FC system, where you train every single day and stuff like that. So that's definitely my goal. And my goal has always been to basically play in the highest level possible. So I'm gonna continue to try to do that until my career is over.
Your background, you're originally from Uzbekistan, and I believe you have a Uzbekistan passport. Do you have like the idea of, potentially like going there to play? Do you have national team aspirations? Uzbekistan, as I'm sure you know, they're in the World Cup, and I took a look at the roster and mostly players from the Uzbek league. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a good question because that's definitely been on my mind a lot. I actually went to Uzbekistan 2 years ago now, and I went over there to trial with a first division team. It was a really good experience because I got to see the level, I got to see how it was, and I was a bit younger too, so it was a really good level because it was the first division. But it was on my mind where I was like, okay, I think in a few years, like I could potentially make it into this league and play. So yeah, Uzbekistan would definitely be one of the leagues that I'll be looking at, even like after New Zealand, if it all works out. So I would definitely want to play there eventually in the future. And all of my relatives, all of my family are there as well, except my like actual family. So yeah, playing there would be really, really nice. And yeah, the national team is also doing really good. And it's their first World Cup ever as well. So especially with Husanov, the one that's playing for Manchester City now. So a few years ago, we won the AFC U23 as well. So you could definitely tell like the country is growing in the sport of soccer. So yeah, that would definitely be one of my goals for sure.
Is there anything that you'd like to add? Any shout outs or any kind of final words before we end the interview?
Thanks for having me. Like, I really appreciate it just to get my story out there. I appreciate you guys having me.
Of course, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing that story. So, Daler, best of luck from us with this upcoming season in New Zealand and everything beyond that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again to Daler for the interview. Looking forward to see how he fares with Petone FC this year. Looks like they have a long season ahead of them, Jason. I guess we could wrap this week's episode up by talking about some of the other Calgarians who are plying their trade in the far corners of the world. As usual, you seem to have dug up another couple of names that we can reference.
First person I want to talk about is Omar Sabah. He came through the Calgary youth ranks. He played NCAA, I think, in San Diego, something like that. And he has, I believe, dual citizenship with Lebanon, I believe. He's been playing a little bit in the Middle East the last little while here, but he's now landed in the Puerto Rican League. I didn't know Puerto Rico had its own league, but they do, and he's going to play for Ponce FC.
Yeah. Kudos to you for digging this up. Yeah, I hadn't heard of this player, so I looked him up, and interesting. He's been all over. Hey, his transfer mark says that he was with UC San Diego, Irvine Strikers, Capo FC. He also spent time in Jordan, in the city of Amman, with a team called Al Ali. So lots of experience, and yeah, I think it's going to be pretty cool for him to play football in Puerto Rico.
I found out about another MRU alumnus who is also on the same team as Caden Rogozinski. They're playing side by side again, presumably on the back line.
Yeah, this is Ethan Keane, and he has joined former Cougars captain Caden Rogozinski at Newcastle United, who we mentioned, I think, in our last episode, plays in, is it the 7th level of English football?
I think it's 7th level, yeah. So that's cool. And speaking of English football, not a new signing, but a Calgarian is making some news on the English football scene right now in League One, Bim Pebble.
Yeah, former podcast guest Bim Pepple is flying at the moment with his club in League One, which is the 3rd division of the English football pyramid. Bim has scored 6 goals for Plymouth Argyle in his last 8 matches, so he is off to a cracking start in 2026. He scored in Plymouth Argyle's last 3 league matches and scored a header against Blackpool last weekend in front of 10,000 fans. Despite a pretty serious eye injury that almost kept him out of the lineup.
Yeah, his run of form has been great. I think right at the beginning of this season, like last August and September, it was taking some time to sort of get familiar with this level and get familiar with his team. But wow, he's really put it together here in the last couple months.
And it seems to have been a pattern with him every time he joins a new club, and he has played for probably half a dozen at this point, mostly on loan, right? But it seems like it takes him a while to find his feet. But once he does, like, man, he just gets going and he starts putting the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis. He did that in the 5th division, the 4th division, and now he's doing it in the 3rd division. So it's really exciting to see a Calgarian thrive in a league like, League One.
I know it's a long shot, but remember when we had him on as a guest, he expressed desire to make the Canadian men's national team. I think it's probably still a bit of a long shot, but he's doing everything he can possibly do right now to make that case.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, 12 years ago, if you were scoring like this in League One, I think you would be a shoo-in to be called up to the men's national team. It's just a bit unlucky for him at the moment that we are in the midst of such a golden generation, and our star striker plays for Juventus, right? Like, this is kind of not typical for Canadian football, but regardless of that, like, huge congrats to Bim Peppel for what he's been able to do since he left Cavalry a few years ago.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links to buy Scott's book. It's called Here Come the Cavalry, and it's all about the history of pro soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Threads, where our username is at YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.